Hey, amazing fans! Welcome to another relaxing moment with VIVA'S Stories. Before we dive into the drama, don't forget to subscribe, smash that like button, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support means the world to us. Now, grab a seat, sit back, relax, and let's journey into the story together. They whispered his name in the corridors of power like it was a riddle. Dr. Ikanem Kale. 35. Brilliant. Unreachable. The kind of man who'd mastered the world's most complex systems, AI for trauma care, biosensors for degenerative diseases, neural recalibration for PTSD. A billionaire before 30. A tech giant without a known weakness, except for the one everyone gossiped about. He couldn't function. At least, not like a man was expected to. No tabloid confirmed it. No woman ever dared speak publicly. But the rumors lingered like smoke around a fire too protected to approach. He had dated actresses, princesses, and even a former UN diplomat. All stunning. All gone in less than a week. Ikanem never denied the stories. Never explained. Never corrected. So when he showed up unannounced at the Geneva International Tech Health Conference, wearing a charcoal suit so tailored it looked grown from his skin, the air shifted. People watched. They speculated. They admired from a distance. But no one touched him. No one ever did. He took a seat in the front row just as the host announced the next speaker. Up next, the voice said over the speakers, Dr. Amoera Iwi, specialist in somatic trauma and intimacy dysfunction, presenting research from West Africa. The name barely stirred the room. Until he looked up. She walked onto the stage without fanfare. No flashy slides. No makeup. Just calm authority wrapped in deep brown skin and a cream-colored blouse that floated as she moved. Her natural locks were pinned in a simple crown. Her presence was soft, but it was not small. Ikanem's eyes narrowed. He didn't recognize her. But something about her made his body sit still. Very still. Amarera looked out at the room. Corporate giants, tech billionaires, Harvard-bred scientists, and began to speak in a low, measured tone that demanded silence without raising itself. What if the body doesn't betray us, she said, but protects us, even in the most inconvenient ways? A few chuckled. One man near the back whispered something dismissive to his colleague. But Ikanem leaned forward, just slightly. I work with trauma survivors, Amoera continued. Some haven't been able to make love for over a decade. Some faint at the thought of touch. Some lose feeling altogether. A few brows lifted. They aren't broken, she said. Their bodies remember what the mind tries to bury. And sometimes, performance is not about function, it's about protection. There was a pause in the room, as if her words had unsettled the air. Then she looked at him. Ikanem. It wasn't just a glance. It was a moment. Their eyes locked. 9 seconds. Long enough for her to see that he understood. Long enough for him to know that she saw him. Not as a rumor, but as a question. He stood up. Without excuse. Without explanation. Just stood, buttoned his jacket, and walked out. Amoera blinked. The audience murmured. But she didn't pause. She turned back to her slides and kept going, though her mind lingered on that man with the fortress eyes and the broken rhythm. Outside, in the hallway, Ikanem walked like he was escaping something. His assistant, Tariq, jogged behind him, confused. Sir? Tariq asked. The Neuralware guys were hoping to cancel the rest of the day, Ikanem said, his voice calm but final. All of it? Ikanem stopped walking. His jaw twitched once. Find her name. Whose? The speaker. Tariq blinked, then nodded slowly. Yes, sir. Back inside the conference hall, Amoera wrapped up her talk to scattered applause. It wasn't the ovation she deserved, but it didn't matter. Something had shifted. That night, in her modest hotel room overlooking Lake Geneva, she sat cross-legged on the bed and opened her laptop. She journaled like she always did after public speaking. Calmly. Precisely. One sentence repeated itself in her mind. One man left in the middle. He looked at me like I'd just picked a lock he didn't know was still closed. She closed the laptop. Elsewhere, on the top floor of an elite hotel suite, Ikanem stared at his reflection in a mirror. The city sparkled behind him, but he didn't see it. He slowly unbuttoned his collar and whispered, almost to himself. She wasn't afraid of the room. It was the first time in years that something inside him stirred that wasn't fear or frustration. It wasn't arousal. It wasn't curiosity. It was deeper than both. It was the slow ache of a door starting to shift on its hinges. That night, a secure call was placed from his private server in Rwanda to a discreet recruitment firm. He didn't say what for. Just 2 words, find her. Amoera wasn't used to 5-star travel. She had grown up taking crowded buses between villages, dodging potholes and stray goats. So when a private charter jet with no visible insignia arrived at her tiny research facility in the outskirts of Abeokuta, she assumed it was a mistake. But the man in the gray suit knew her name. Dr. Amoera Iwi, he said, without even checking a file. You've been selected for a highly confidential research initiative. All expenses covered. 3-week commitment. Compensation? He slipped her a thick, folded letter, non-negotiable. Amoera frowned as she opened it. The number made her knees soften. It was more than her entire yearly salary. 10 times more. She looked up at the man, eyes narrowed. What kind of research? The man didn't blink. The kind that chooses you, not the other way around. She almost refused. But something tugged at her. Not curiosity. Not greed. A quiet knowing. So, with her passport, her journals, and a hand-sewn head wrap from her late mother, she boarded the jet. No destination was listed. Only the coordinates. Bonda. Amoera had never seen land so green. From the air, the hills rolled like waves caught mid-motion. But the car that awaited her at the airstrip was black, armored, and curtained. The road to the mansion felt endless. No signs. No neighbors. Just mist, forest, and an eerie hush that swallowed every bird call. By the time the gates appeared, 20 feet high and reinforced with smart surveillance, her heartbeat had started to whisper, "Where am I?" The car slowed. The gates opened. And the house came into view. It wasn't a mansion. It was a fortress. Minimalist. Elegant. Made of stone, steel, and thick glass that reflected the mountains like a mirror. There were no visible guards. But Amoera could feel the presence of unseen eyes. The man who met her at the door wore no smile. You'll be escorted to the guest wing. Dr. Kale will meet with you shortly. The name stopped her in her tracks. Dr. Kale? Her mouth opened slightly, then closed again. So it wasn't a coincidence. It was him. The man from Geneva. The one who walked out after locking eyes with her. She was not here for research. She was here for him. Her room was soft-lit and soundproof. No windows. Only an overhead skylight that let in a muted kind of daylight. The bed was firm. The desk was bare. But the scent in the air, eucalyptus and something earthy, made her feel like she was deep inside someone else's thoughts. She unpacked in silence. 2 hours passed before the knock came. The man in black returned. Dr. Kale is ready. Amoera followed him through a long hallway that curved like a question mark. The air grew colder. The walls tighter. And then, without fanfare, the door opened. He was already sitting there. Alone. His back to a fireplace that wasn't lit. His eyes focused entirely on her. Amoera stepped inside, her spine straight. He didn't speak. She didn't either. They sat. For 30 seconds. Then a minute. Then 5. The silence wasn't awkward. It was alive. Like a wild animal waiting to see who would make the first move. Finally he spoke. You know why you're here. His voice was calm, clipped, and deliberate. As if each word had been tested for weakness before release. Amoera tilted her head. I can guess. I've worked with 23 doctors, he said, staring into the fireless hearth. 3 were world-class neurologists. 6 were intimacy experts. The rest, opportunists with credentials. And me? I don't know yet. She waited. Then he looked at her, really looked at her, and said, My body shuts down the moment it senses closeness. Not attraction. Not even desire. Just the potential for vulnerability. She felt a pang in her chest, not pity, but recognition. No one has lasted, he added. None of them could touch me without something inside me folding. Amoera didn't reach for a pen, or nod, or even blink too quickly. Instead, she asked softly, "And you think I will?" Ikanem's jaw tightened. "I don't think anything. I don't believe in miracles or messiahs." She sat forward. "Then why am I here?" He stared at her for a long time, then stood. "You're not here to fix me. You're here to try. If you fail, you leave. No questions. No press. No fallout." Amoera looked around the stone room. "No cameras?" she asked. "None in this wing. Everything here depends on trust." She raised an eyebrow. "That's a curious thing to demand from someone you just locked in a house on a mountain." A shadow of a smile flickered across his mouth. "You didn't say no," he replied. She stood too. "No, I didn't." He looked almost disappointed. "Good," he said quietly. "Then let's begin." That night, Amoera sat in her new room, staring up at the skylight. The stars above seemed impossibly still. She thought of her patients. Women who couldn't bear to be hugged. Men who forgot how to cry but flinched when their children touched their backs. And now, this man. Powerful. Controlled. Frozen inside a body that remembered too much. But she hadn't seen dysfunction in him. She'd seen fear. Fear wrapped in discipline. Trauma buried beneath protocol. A man who had trained his body to survive everything, except intimacy. As she drifted to sleep, she whispered to herself, "He doesn't need to be healed. He needs to feel safe." The mansion was quiet in a way that didn't feel natural. It wasn't the peaceful silence of the countryside, nor the functional silence of a luxury estate. This quiet had weight. It pressed against the walls, slipped under doors, settled in your lungs. As if the house itself was holding its breath. Amoera moved through the corridor with bare feet, her notepad cradled in her arm. The guest wing was beautiful but oddly sterile. Every design choice whispered control. Not opulence, discipline. There were no clocks. No music. No television. Time didn't pass here. It waited. She had asked to be left alone after their initial meeting. Ikanem hadn't protested. He hadn't said much at all. Dinner was brought in on a tray by a faceless attendant. Grilled vegetables. Millet. Pineapple slices. Herbal tea. No processed sugar. No meat. Everything curated like a rehab diet. She didn't eat much. Instead, she sat by the tall window of her suite, the only one with a view, and journaled. Her pen moved slowly, like it too had to respect the silence of the house. He doesn't twitch, but he observes everything. He doesn't touch, but there's tension in his fingers. This isn't about arousal. This is about permission. Control. Maybe. Or memory. She paused, tapping the pen to her lip. Just then, she felt it. A presence. Without warning, the door opened slightly. And Ikanem stepped inside. He didn't knock. Didn't announce himself. He was barefoot, wearing loose black cotton pants and a plain t-shirt. Somehow, the simplicity made him look even more unreachable. Amoera didn't move. She could have spoken, asked why he was here, what he wanted if something was wrong, but something in his eyes told her not to. Instead he sat. Across from her. Not close, not far. He didn't look at her directly. Just gazed out through the glass, to the fog settling over the mountains outside. For a full hour, they sat in complete silence. No words. No questions. Only the sound of the wind brushing against the glass, and the distant, methodical beat of the security lights rotating along the outer grounds. Amoera didn't fidget. She didn't try to fill the silence with therapy speak or gentle prodding. She simply mirrored him. Still, present, patient. It was the first test. She knew it. After 47 minutes, he finally glanced at her. Just a flicker. She met his gaze. Not with challenge, not with sympathy. Just quiet understanding. That seemed to land. At the 55-minute mark, he leaned forward slightly as if to say something, then stopped himself. His hand flexed. Then relaxed. At exactly 1 hour, he stood up. Still no words. He turned to leave, but paused at the door. His voice was low, almost imperceptible. "You're not afraid of silence," he said. Then softer. "That's new. The door clicked gently behind him. Amaera sat for a moment, absorbing the echo of his presence. Not the words, but the fact that he came. That he stayed. That he watched her, not like a man watching a woman, but like a boy trying to see if the ground beneath him was still safe. She didn't sleep right away. Instead, she journaled again. He sat with me. For 1 hour. Just silence. But silence is a language. And he spoke it. The next morning, she found a tray at her door again. But this time, there was a note attached. In small, precise handwriting. If you still want to try, I'll be in the training room at 3 p.m. No signature. None needed. Later that day, Amaera walked the halls again. But something had shifted. The silence no longer felt like absence. Felt like space. Space he had protected. Space she had now stepped into. She passed a closed door labeled "Done." She paused, then kept walking. She wasn't ready to enter just yet. Not until she knew what was being guarded on the other side. But as she walked on, she noticed something. On a side table near the entrance to the study, left carelessly beside a neatly folded towel, was a journal. Leather-bound. Untitled. She looked around. The hall was empty. She hesitated. Her fingers hovered. Then, with a breath, she opened the first page. The handwriting was the same. But what caught her was the date, March 14, 2007. She flipped through until she reached one entry that seemed worn, the corners smudged. Naima was still breathing when I told her to be quiet. We heard the rebels upstairs. I covered her mouth. We hid under the floorboards. I told her not to cry. But she was shaking. I didn't know what to do. I was 15. When they left, she wasn't breathing anymore. I think part of me stopped breathing with her. Amara's chest tightened. She closed the journal gently and set it exactly where she found it. Then walked back to her room. Her hands trembled just a little. The next time Ikanem saw her, he didn't speak right away. He was in the training room, a vast, echoing space with glass walls and polished wood floors. It wasn't a typical gym. No loud equipment, no clanking weights. Just space. And silence. Like everything else in his world. Amaera walked in without knocking. She wore navy blue workout leggings, a long cotton tunic, and her locks pulled into a loose bun. Her presence didn't feel like an intrusion. More like a quiet challenge to the void he'd built around himself. Ikanem was barefoot on a mat, holding a plank longer than any man should. His body, lean, honed, didn't even tremble. He stayed in position as she walked in. Only his eyes flicked toward her. I thought you said you didn't believe in miracles, Amaera said softly. I don't. Then what is this? He dropped to his feet. Wiped his hands. Straightened. I don't know, he said. There was no smugness in his tone. No flirtation. Just honesty. Heavy and raw. Amaera crossed to the opposite mat. Sat cross-legged. Why now? She asked. He took a long breath. Looked at her. Because you didn't speak. The pause. You didn't ask what was wrong with me, he added. I still won't. That made something twitch in his jaw. Not annoyance. Something like relief. They sat in quiet again, but it was different now. Not a test. Not a challenge. Just presence. And then, almost reluctantly, he said, I dream about her sometimes. Amaera stayed still. The therapy room wasn't what Amaera expected. No sterile walls. No examination tables. No cold lighting. Instead, the space was intimate, soft wooden floors, woven mats, sheer curtains gently billowing from the open windows, and warm morning light pooling across the room like a silk blanket. Somewhere, faint music played, just a cello and a heartbeat-like drum. The pulse. Ikanem stood at the far end, barefoot again, dressed in a loose linen shirt and joggers. He looked calm. But Amaera had learned to stop trusting his exterior. His stillness was a smokescreen. His silence, a fortress. But today, something was different. I want to try something, she said. Ikanem didn't nod. Didn't question. He simply watched her. Somatic light therapy, she explained. It's not about fixing anything. It's about allowing the body to feel presence. Safety. Gradually. He said nothing. She took that as permission. Sit, she offered gently, motioning to the mat. He obeyed, slowly, carefully, like someone stepping onto cracked ice. Amaera sat opposite him and placed a small lamp beside them. The glow was soft, amber-toned, meant to mimic sunlight. Not harsh, not intrusive, just warm. I'm going to guide us through a series of breathings, she said. You don't have to do anything except notice what your body feels. That's all. Again, no response. But his gaze never left hers. They sat across from each other, legs crossed, palms resting on their knees. Close your eyes if you're comfortable, she said softly. Inhale through the nose, 4 counts. Exhale, 6 counts. She led the breathing. Her voice was calm and steady, moving like water over stone. After a few rounds, she noticed it, the way his shoulders dropped just slightly. The way his fingers, always tightly flexed, finally rested on his thighs. Progress wasn't loud. It was subtle, like peace entering a room that had only known control. Now, she said gently, I'm going to extend my hand. If your body reacts, we stop. No pressure. She moved slowly, open palm, facing up. No reaching, just invitation. At first, he didn't move. Then, like a soldier stepping through a minefield, he inched his hand forward. Fingers hovered near hers. She could feel the heat radiating off his skin, not from tension, but from the storm held beneath it. Then his hand touched hers. Just the edge. Fingertips to fingertips. His breathing didn't change at first. The one breath, deeper than the rest. His shoulders didn't twitch. His jaw didn't clench. He didn't flinch. Amara's eyes opened slowly to look at him. His eyes were open too, focused entirely on their hands. A single whisper left his lips. This isn't supposed to happen. Amaera didn't move, didn't respond immediately. She let the moment stretch, then said quietly, maybe it's not about what's supposed to happen. He looked up at her. Maybe it's about what your body chooses, she said. And maybe, for the first time, it's choosing not to run. Ikanem blinked. A blink full of fear. And wonder. He didn't let go of her hand. Not immediately. They sat like that for nearly 3 minutes. Neither of them daring to move, as if disrupting the moment might cause it to vanish like smoke. Finally, he whispered, You don't understand. Amara's voice was softer than a sigh. Maybe it's not about understanding. He looked at her, as if trying to decide whether to retreat again. Then she added, Maybe it's about feeling safe enough not to care. His fingers curled slightly around hers. Not in desire, not in possession, but in recognition. Like a part of him, long buried, had just exhaled for the first time in 20 years. Later, as Amaera walked back to her suite, she didn't feel victorious. She felt humbled. Not because he let her touch him, but because he let himself stay touched. There was a difference. So many of her patients had flinched, pulled away, apologized, cried. Ikanem had done none of those things. He had breathed, and stayed. That night, Amaera opened her journal and wrote just one line. His body didn't retreat. That means it remembers something besides fear. She didn't sign it. She didn't need to. Because for the first time in her life, she felt seen too. She had a scar under her left eye. She hated it. I told her it made her look like a warrior. Who was she? Amaera asked gently. He didn't answer right away. Then, Naima. He didn't elaborate. But the name cracked something open. I was 15, he said. She was 14. Her father was our neighbor. The rebels came during the night. Amaera said nothing. Let the silence draw the story out. We hid under the floor. I covered her mouth. She was crying too loud. I kept whispering, just wait. Just wait. His voice caught. Just slightly. She died right beside me. I don't even know when. Maybe she suffocated. Maybe her heart gave out. I don't know. He stood abruptly and turned away. She was the only person who ever made me feel like I didn't have to be perfect. Amaera rose slowly to her feet, keeping distance. Not crowding him. Is that why you've shut down intimacy? He spun. Cold. Don't do that. She blinked. Do what? Reduce this to your science. Amara's tone didn't waver. I wasn't reducing it. I was connecting it. His eyes darkened. He took a step closer. The air between them tightened. I didn't ask to be analyzed, he said, low. You hired me. To try. Not to dig. Amarera held her ground. Her voice softened. I didn't dig. You left your journal in plain sight. That froze him. He inhaled sharply, chest rising once. I didn't mean to read it all, she added. Silence. Then, in a whisper that betrayed his composure, he said, she trusted me. I failed her. I watched her die, and all I could do was be quiet. Amara's heart cracked, not out of pity, but from the weight of the confession. You were a boy, she said. I was her protector. You were a child. I've never let anyone close since. Because what if it happens again? His voice broke. I don't shut down because I'm broken. I shut down because I remember. There was not a condition, a memory, woven into the muscles, the nerves, the breath. Amarera stepped forward, just one step. Not to touch him, just to stand near. I'm not here to fix that, she said gently. He didn't move. But if your body remembers fear, it can also learn to remember safety. He laughed bitterly, but his voice was hoarse. And you think you're safety? No, she said. I think I can be safety. If you let me. Ikanem turned his face away, as if even that offer was too painful. He didn't respond. But that night, long after the house went quiet, Amarera heard soft footsteps outside her door again. No knock. Just presence. Like before. Only this time, he didn't walk away immediately. He stood there. For minutes. Until the silence between them became a kind of language. Amarera sat up in bed. She didn't open the door. She just whispered, not knowing if he'd hear her through the wood. You didn't fail her. The hallway fell quiet. Then footsteps retreated. It was Ikanem who asked her out that day. Not with words like date or invitation. There's a lake. I haven't shown anyone. Come if you want. And so she came. They drove in silence through winding forest roads, past banana trees and quiet hills that curved like sleeping bodies. When they reached the lake, it was as if the rest of the world had vanished. Water so still, it reflected them like memory. They sat on a small jetty, shoes off, feet dangling just above the surface. Neither of them had spoken for nearly 20 minutes. Then he said it. I haven't been touched without shutting down since I was 16. Amarera didn't respond. She looked out over the lake, letting his words breathe. You make it feel like nothing is expected, he added. That's new. She turned her head to him. Nothing is. Their eyes met, and in that moment, there was no story, no science, no strategy. Only ache. Only presence. Ikanem leaned in slowly. There was no rush in his motion. No fear. Their lips met. So, unhurried. And this time, his hands didn't shake. He didn't withdraw. He let it happen, like his body had finally given permission. When they pulled apart, neither of them spoke. But Amarera could feel it, the shift. The door, long rusted shut, had cracked open. And love, not lust, not fear, was the one who had knocked. Later that night, Ikanem sat with her on the floor of the indoor garden. Plants climbed the walls like whispers. Candlelight flickered on their faces. He spoke slowly, deliberately. I've had women throw themselves at me, he said. Models. Heiresses. Powerful women. All beautiful. All kind. Some desperate. Amarera listened, but not to be flattered. They thought it was a performance issue. They tried pills. Music. Pressure. Some got angry. Some cried. But always, my body folded. Like it had a mind of its own. Amarera tilted her head. And with me. He exhaled. With you, it's not silent. It's not terrified. She didn't smile. She didn't celebrate. She just reached for his hand and said, that's because your body doesn't trust logic. It trusts safety. And it finally feels it. He held her hand gently, then whispered, I think my body chose you before my mind could catch up. The world outside their cocoon didn't stay silent for long. News broke suddenly, an anonymous whistleblower alleging that Dr. Amoera Iwi was engaging in unethical intimacy with a private client. Screenshots, claims, leaked travel manifests. The source? Dr. Yomi Ajayi. The same man who once humiliated her in grad school. Who told her more than once, "Your body is your only research tool." Amara's inbox flooded. Licensing boards sent urgent letters. Her upcoming TEDx talk was postponed. Journal invitations evaporated. Ikanem wanted to fight for her. Immediately. "Let me release a statement," he said. "Let me." But Amoera stopped him. "You're already rebuilding your body," she said. "You don't need to carry mine too." Tears burned her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. "I'll leave," she whispered, "before this wrecks everything you've worked for." He gripped her wrist, eyes wild. No. But she had already packed. Amoera walked out of the mansion without a goodbye. Because love doesn't always end with a door slamming. Sometimes, it ends with a whisper. She didn't expect him to follow her to Nairobi. Didn't expect him to stand at the back of her keynote speech at the East African Neurotherapy Summit, wearing a black suit and an expression like grief. She was halfway through her presentation when she saw him. He walked to the stage. Took the mic. The room gasped. "I'm not here to interrupt," he said. "I'm here to confess." Amoera froze. "I couldn't function as a man. Not physically. Not emotionally. For years. Until this woman touched me." He looked straight at her. Voice cracking. "She didn't seduce me. She didn't fix me. She made me feel safe. And in that safety, I became whole." The audience fell silent. A few stood. Phones were out. Live streaming. His words were risky. But in that moment he chose her. Not behind closed doors. Not in the safety of silence. He chose her in front of the world. They disappeared for weeks after the conference. No press could find them. No posts. No photos. But somewhere, far from the noise, in a retreat nestled deep within an Ethiopian valley, they tried again. And this time, there was no shutdown. No panic. No withdrawal. Just two people, skin against skin, eyes locked, and a slow unraveling of decades of fear. Ikanem touched her like someone learning how to speak again. She held him like she had known him in another life. And when it was over, quiet, steady, whole, they lay together under the moonlight. He whispered into the hollow of her collarbone. "You were the only one who didn't try to fix me. That's how I finally became whole." She kissed his forehead and smiled. Because healing, she knew now, wasn't about repairing brokenness. It was about remembering who you were before the breaking began. Thank you for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell for newly created content.